Well, what's another thing that can drive some of these business cycles? Well, shocks. All right, we call this, first of all, let's talk about this word right here, exogenous. Exogenous, exo, means outside. All right, exo means outside, so outside changes or outside shocks. All right, in other words, outside of our model. We haven't taken this into account. For example, if we want to look at gasoline prices, we might take natural disasters like hurricanes hitting and destroying refineries as an exogenous shock, not something we're modeling directly within our model. Why? Because we're economists and not meteorologists. So these are changes in aggregate supply or aggregate demand that just happen. They come from outside of our model. Shocks temporarily push the economy away from full employment. So we could have something happen and we get pushed away from full employment. So an example, changes in the price of a key input like oil. All right, if we change the price of oil, gasoline and diesel go up, which basically makes the cost of producing everything go up, which is going to cause us to want to supply less. If cost of production goes up, supply goes down, so aggregate supply will shift to the left, or we'll have less supply. We'll want to supply less of our stuff, and that will cause prices to go up and output to go down, and we'll enter a recession. Changes in government policy. Deregulation in the airline industry caused a major shift in supply of airline tickets. So price of airline tickets after deregulation went way down. Oh, natural disasters, of course. So, how do we figure out what the business cycle is going to do? So we don't know exactly what causes it. We know that policy has some effects, and we know that these external shocks can cause us to move one way or another around the business cycle. And then there's just the economy wants to wiggle. All right, it just squirms and wiggles a little bit. So all of that put together gives us this business cycle. How can we, predict it? We've put together some what we call leading indicators, which we think might have some explanatory power or predictive power of the business cycle. Some of these are smart, some of them aren't. Average work week, as the business cycle improves, businesses need to produce more stuff, and so they have their employees work more hours. So this average work week or number of hours worked is sometimes an indicator. Unemployment claims, that's the first sign that we're seeing either a decrease in unemployment or an increase in unemployment come in these claims, because the first thing you have to do to collect unemployment benefits is fill out the form and apply for it, which is called an unemployment claim. New orders. Yeah, so as customers start to order more stuff, we see that. One thing similar to this is retail sales. And just recently we saw some less than encouraging numbers about retail sales. They decreased for the third month in a row, although it's kind of hard to say much about retail sales in the summer because the summer is just weird. Vendor performance, index of consumer expectations. So this one, particularly there's the University of Michigan Index of Consumer Sentiment. Which is a good one to take a look at to give you this idea of consumer confidence. Do they feel confident about the economy? Do they not feel confident about the economy? Because if you don't feel confident, you don't spend money, and that pulls the business cycle down. New orders for capital goods. So businesses, do they feel confident enough about the economy to actually buy the stuff they need to produce stuff? Building permits, that one sucks. Stock prices, that one sucks. Neither one of those really move very well with the economy. First of all, building permits, it's terrible data because it's all collected from the county up, and every single county does building permits differently. So you might have one county that says to put in a water heater you have to have a building permit. Another county that says to have a new house you have to put in a new building permit. And those just aren't comparable. They're very poor predictors. Stock prices are also very poor predictors of the business cycle. They're just too volatile. Money supply is good. Money growth rate is good for looking at inflation rates, and interest rate spreads. That's the difference between a short-term rate and a long-term rate. And yes, sometimes that can provide some information too. So let's look at some business cycles in the United States. What we're looking here is the unemployment rate. And well, how do these two work? So remember, these gray bars, right, are the recession bars. And we're starting in 1990, so we've had 3 recessions since 1990. One recession around 91, and you can see what happens to unemployment. It goes up. Well, that kind of makes sense. All right, we look at the then we have an expansion all the way to 2001. What happens in 2001 with the recession? Unemployment rate, well, it goes up. That makes sense. All right, now we have this recession here in 2008 to 2009. What happens to unemployment rate? It goes way up. Right? Also makes sense. So what doesn't make sense is now here, this is the recession is over, recession is over, recession is over. What happens to unemployment? It goes up. It goes up. It goes up. So tell me, why does it continue to go up? Well, because when we're on the cycle, this is the trough. That's the end of the recession. That's as bad as it gets. All right? Then we have to recover before we can expand. And generally what happens is that unemployment or the labor market doesn't recover until several quarters after the end of the recession. All right, so notice we don't get back down to the same level of unemployment that we were at before the recession to all the way here, something like 4 years later. In 2001, we don't get back down until here, something like about 3 years later. Here, we haven't come even close. So probably it would be better to look at this line, and we've got a ways to go before we have recovered fully from the latest recession. But notice it was a lot bigger, and we had a lot greater increase in unemployment than we had in the previous two. So that's something to realize about business cycles. Just because we've ended the recession doesn't mean we're out of the woods. That means things go from the economy is bad and getting worse to the economy is bad and getting better. And it takes a long time for the labor market to recover after a recession. So for further readings, I really highly recommend this. Christy Romer is a brilliant economist at Stanford, and she has written a wonderful little article here on business cycles. So go ahead and take a look at that.